We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick in the mid-afternoon. It's not after dark. It's about 4:45. You're talking to Josh Bowe and I here on Sunday, January 12th. The Dallas Mavericks just lost to the Denver Nuggets 112-101. If you're tuning in and you happen to be watching NFL Sunday and you don't know what happened in this game and you look at the score and you might be thinking, oh, hey, that's interesting. The Mavericks put up a fight against the Denver Nuggets. No. What they did is they gave up a double-digit lead for the fourth time in 9 games and lost. And not just the double-digit lead. They were up by 19 with 5 minutes left in the third quarter and proceeded to absolutely shit themselves in what I would need to power rank the most frustrating losses. This one is up there because it was written in the stars. You could see it happening. And what's more frustrating, is that the Mavericks did absolutely nothing to stop the bleeding. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing okay. If nothing else, at least we get to talk about this game, and then it's not even 6 o'clock yet, and we could just move on, and we're not going to bed late. And this game didn't cause us to stay up too late because usually Denver games, are usually late night games for the most part. So there's one brief positive to this is that they at least got it out of the way early and we could try to get on with our evenings. But yeah, that was a rough game, and it is very funny because we're going to get, if you're someone who doesn't like to argue online, I would suggest just logging off till the next Mavs game, because it is going to be a perfect circle of the people that think that this loss isn't a big deal because the Mavericks were shorthanded and Denver's good, versus people who are like, well, don't ignore the context of the game where they had separate 17 and 19 point leads and they lost. And then they're going to be like, well, they didn't have Luka and Kyrie. What'd you expect? And we're just going to go in a big round circle until the next game. So it's going to be a lot of fun online.
So I want to talk about the big picture before we talk about the game itself, which is normally the opposite of what I like to do. At a certain point, so Luka Doncic was seen doing some on-court work, which is nice. People are rightfully worried about Kyrie Irving's injury. I think it is safe to assume Dallas will not have either player for another month. Okay? That's a hedge to a degree. It's an emotional hedge with me not having any medical information other than the fact that it is difficult. Okay? It is difficult to come back from the kind of injuries that both of these players are suffering. Soft tissue injury with Luka on his primary plant foot and a back issue with a over 30 undersized guard and Kyrie Irving. They're not good injuries. You have to be careful. So if we assume another month, and let's just say 3 weeks, okay? Whatever you want to call it, February 1st, you're not getting either of these guys for another 10 to 15 games, if not more, because I've not really looked at the schedule. Dallas has to start winning some of these games that they're not supposed to. And they also can't afford to lose a game against a really bad team. And sometimes that happens. They have now lost. And I'm just going to go look at the schedule here to see which ones are really like chapping my ass here. They lost a double-digit game against the Kings, which everybody told me I needed to calm down about. Fine. Let's just put that one away. Who else? They lost that really awful game to Portland. That was a horrible loss.
Nuclear.
They lost. The Memphis one made me real mad too.
Yes, because they were without Ja and Desmond Bain and Marcus Smart,
and they just got owned.
Yeah,
and then now they lose to Denver. I'm not saying they need to win all of these games, but they have won a mere 2 games since Kyrie and Luka went out. It's just not a good winning percentage, guys. And okay, Rolex in the chat says another month for Kyrie, question mark. The reason I'm saying this is because the Mavericks are being tepid on purpose about Kyrie. They can't give us a value, like a specific timetable back, because back injuries are notoriously difficult to predict. And that has nothing to do with Kyrie or the medical staff or even the Mavericks being shady. They are just saying he will be reevaluated in 1 to 2 weeks. They did not say he's coming back in 1 to 2 weeks. Spinal stuff is dangerous. You have to be careful. And so I find myself on the verge of fury after this game because, I mean, it was such a stupid loss. They punched Denver in the mouth repeatedly. And then they went back and I'm trying to figure what I would want to really pinpoint this loss on. And I don't know where to start.
Oh, that's easy.
Okay.
Offensive rebounds.
Offensive rebound. Okay.
Nuggets had 27 second chance points. They had 15 offensive rebounds. Did you look? I don't know if you have a box score up, but you should take a look at how many defensive rebounds Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford each had. Do that real quick. I want to see your reaction in real time.
Lively had 5, which is pathetic.
No, defensive rebound. Just defensive rebounds.
Just defensive rebounds. Oh, Jesus. 5 total for them for the game. And what's so interesting is in the pregame during the Mavericks abomination of a 4-person booth. That's not to say, when I say abomination, 4 people in a booth is impossible to do. And they talked about the pregame and rebounding in the pregame. They're like, the Mavericks have to do something with the glass, and they just couldn't.
Because Denver was dead. That's how they got back into the game. I mean, if everything about this game is literally the exact same, I'm talking their shooting percentages, even the Spencer Dinwiddie ISO ball, all that stuff stays the same. If they held Denver to a manageable amount of second chance points, they still win this game comfortably. Because that's how Denver got back into the game. They were down 17, and then they got clawed back into it toward the end of halftime because they just kept getting offensive rebounds.
Yeah, Jeremy in the chat says rebounding is not only the centers. Even another player like Dinwiddie refused to box out. We'll get to Dinwiddie. Watching that asshole point to people in traffic as he blows defensive assignments and then flops on the ground like a dead fish after missing a bad shot. I'm so tired. That was the Spencer Dinwiddie game. We'll circle back to him.
Yeah, but it is a team-wide effort. PJ had 6 rebounds total.
PJ was awful this game.
Yeah, Dinwiddie, like you said, had 4. Maxey played 20 minutes off the bench. He had 0 defensive rebounds in 20 minutes. But you're
remarkable.
Yeah, but also I'm sorry, but your center, yes, it is your responsibility. Everyone shares a bit of it, but your centers share the most of that responsibility. They've invested a lot into their centers. Lively was a lottery pick. And obviously he's great. They're linchpins of the team. And I think that's why we should be critical of them because of how important they are to the team. And they acquired a first rounder to get Gafford, to send that out for Gafford. You just have to get more out of those guys on the boards.
Can I make an observation? I feel like when the Mavericks were playing well, they were team rebounding very well. Like Lively and Gafford.
Yeah, because Jokic takes up so much space. Like,
and so it's like there were a lot of like tip balls where it's getting batted around. And when the Mavericks were up, they were gang rebounding very well. You look at the defensive rebounding totals, and every single starter has at least a few. I mean, Spencer is probably the worst of the lot. Grimes, even though he had a disaster class of a game, had some big ones where it's like when they were up, they were really gang rebounding well. And I felt like it's so maddening because like I really wanted to come in here and talk about that third quarter stretch where the Mavericks got up by 19, where they were bullying Denver from pillar to post, just really taking it to them. And they had Denver on their heels. And then just some really heinously bad offensive possessions where it's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to do this. I don't want to kill him just yet. There were just some missed shots where it's like, guys, you got to hit an open look. And then the 19-point lead becomes a 10-point lead.
They stopped guarding Kleba in the second half. He missed 3 straight 3-pointers.
Where you could
wide
see
open.
Kleba shitting himself in the process of getting the ball. Like his misses got worse.
They turned him into 6'10" Tony Allen in the second half, and that worked really well. Probably, I mean, they played him too much. I think he had some good moments in the first half, but yeah, they kind of a big rotate. Like, look how many people played in this game. They had a 5, 6.
They
7,
played everybody
8,
they could except for Powell and for Morris.
I don't know if this was a game that they needed to play everyone this many.
Well, they threw in Omax for that 3-minute, and he shot a 3-pointer, or was it 2-pointer? He shot a 2-pointer that went over the rim by like 1.5 feet. And he was a -4 in 3 minutes, like where his freneticism was used against him. And they were like, nope, not a thing.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't. This was a game to maybe tighten up the rotation like a little bit. Like Najee plays 31 minutes. And you're splitting all these minutes. Like Grimes wasn't very good, so I understand it. But like, I don't know. It felt like he played a lot of guys that weren't doing things, and they maybe could have leaned into the guys that were like. Najee was probably their best offensive player besides Lively. And it felt like those two were just invisible in the second half. So some of that is their own doing. Lively was invisible in the second half because he couldn't stay on the floor because he had foul trouble. And then Najee, I don't really know. That was just Dinwiddie ISO ball to the worst you'll ever see it in that fourth quarter. If that's where you want to go now. Because that was the other thing that really stood out.
Well, I sort of want to I want to keep harping on the centers. Like Lively got assists for a couple of like 9 dribble possessions from someone after he passed the ball. Like, I don't understand NBA scorekeeping. He finished with a career high 8 assists, 15 points, 5 boards, 8 assists. They were doing some interesting things with him. Like he had a couple of off the dribble turnovers, which were pretty bad. But I had asked last game, I would like to see him more involved in the offense. And I thought the offensive process with him was at least interesting.
Yeah.
Going against Jokic is difficult. He had a couple of his misses were really hurried shots. But I was interested in his process. Now, you mentioned the fouls. He had 5 personal fouls. 3 of them were stupid. Like bad elementary school. What are you doing fouls? Like fouling DeAndre Jordan for an and one. What are we getting your hand stuck in the cookie jar right after Gafford had been pulled for the same foul? I mean, I was very challenged by his youth, where when he makes defensive lapses, and I mean I'm mad, but it's almost a compliment to how well he has, like the level of play that he's at.
You're like disappointed dad.
I'm disappointed because he's much better than this. It's much better than this. And he played 27 minutes. Kid probably wanted to play him more.
Yeah, with the foul trouble. Yeah.
But he couldn't. And we're going to get to Gafford in a second here, but JJ Barea said something asinine to start the fourth quarter where he's like, I'm really excited. This is good. The Mavericks are going small. This is good. And I'm sitting there going, what are you talking about? The the Nuggets made their run at the end of the third quarter with the Mavericks being extra small. And it's because I think like he felt like he had to play Maxi Kleber at center over Gafford. And Gafford was absolutely horrible. The -7 does not do justice to how destructively bad his minutes were in this game. I'm honestly shocked. Like, that might be one of the worst Daniel Gafford games we have ever seen. And that includes the game where he was a -29 just a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Like, he was actively destructive to the Mavericks attempts, where he gets these open attempts and just shanked them. And then, there was that one, he made a real cool spin off a pump fake and then blows the layup and then gets blocked on the next attempt. And I'm just, without Jokic, that's the second rub. Like, there was no backup center. Like, he was getting bodied by like Julian Strother and other people. I'm like, what is happening?
DeAndre Jordan had a more effective game than Daniel Gafford in the year 2024. Yeah, that kind of sums up the game. I know.
I like Gafford, but he was awful.
Low key, that's becoming a story. Like, that is becoming a thing because they are consistently losing his minutes, and you don't want to say that it's all on him. It's not all, there are 4 other players on the floor, so it's not always all on him. But when you get into the data and you're looking at it, you're looking at lineups where you just swap Gafford for Lively and everyone else is the same. And the difference is stark. Like, they're plus whatever with Lively and then they're minus whatever with Gafford with the same players, with with the other 4 players being the same. Yeah, they're losing his minutes. And that was, he was so good for them last year. They started him. Like, he wasn't just the backup. He started and he was part of that second half run. He's still contesting well at the rim when he contests. The problem is everything else. It's losing men off ball. It's guarding in space.
He fouled Jokic on 2 3-point shot attempts and then got his hand stuck in the cookie jar on a third one.
Yeah, not good.
What is happening, friendo?
Yeah.
And his minutes pair, and this is not his fault directly. This is a team thing. We've not even talked about this yet. The Mavericks got crushed in the non-Jokic minutes.
Yes.
The Nuggets, and guys, here's why this matters. Part of why Jokic is a great player, don't get me wrong. Jokic is an unbelievable player, a historic player. But his net rating looks amazing because he always plays with their best players. They maximize the Jokic minutes. They don't spread things out. This is by design with their coaching stuff, which means when they run bench units without him, traditionally the Nuggets get killed.
And this season they're getting killed too.
And this season too. So this is the second game, I think, in a row that the Mavericks got crushed in the Jokic bench minutes, which is, and I don't know, like, it's simply unacceptable.
It's unacceptable to play those minutes even. Like, you have to win those.
You have to win them, and they got smoked. And it was remarkable watching Jason Kidd do absolutely nothing in those minutes. Nothing.
The bench was terrible. The whole no one came off the bench and gave them anything.
Grimes has been so important in the previous 2 wins, and he just died. Yep. Mistakes after mistakes. He had 4 turnovers in 19 minutes.
More turnovers
1 made
than
shot.
Points.
He had 3 open threes and missed 2 of them badly. We already mentioned Omax. We already mentioned Kleber. And then there's the guy who I just can't help. Hardy, this was a really incredible Hardy game because he did 2 or 3 things that were beyond fantastic. Like, he left one pass, a really difficult pass off of a pick and roll with Gafford for one of Gafford's 2 makes. He hit a really difficult contested pullback step back 3, but then he got the he ended up with the ball on a loose ball situation with Denver, and he surrounded by Nuggets, like all sides. And one of the Nuggets tips the ball from behind because, of course, he loses it, whereas Hardy absolutely should have given the ball up. And he goes to the ground. And this is where his unending confidence works out for them. Because most guys, you end up on the ground, bad things happen. It's just basketball. Hardy's sitting there on his butt and makes a crisp pass, like 20-foot pass to Klay Thompson for a made three. Then like 2 possessions later, he takes a charge. And the Mavericks, I think Klay hits a 3 after that one. And something like that.
That was the third quarter run that got them.
Third quarter run. So he's a part of this third quarter run where the Mavericks get up by 19. Then he misses 4 straight open field, 3 straight threes, and then tries a wild layup attempt that just goes all the way over the rim. And the Mavericks offense just died on the vine at that point. That was the specific moment where the Mavericks offense started to die because they're up by 19 and they went away from anything that had been working for them. And poor Hardy gets pulled after that point because he was also getting roasted on defense. Like, this was a difficult Hardy game. Like, I don't expect high level defense from Hardy, but he was out of position for much of the game. And the Nuggets really, really made it a point to attack him. Anyway, so that's our bench guys. That's our bench guys. It was rough.
Right. And that's what leads to Dinwiddie playing so much in the fourth. Because, I mean, look at the bench. Like,
where's Jason Kidd turning?
Yeah. And that's the part where I don't get to, there's a level of what are you going to do when Luka and Kyrie are out? Mm-hmm. But also, to me, I don't think this game was lost offensively. Like, I think, like I said, the reason why you should be mad about this game is because the big men didn't do their job. And the players that were available that can still do things without Luka didn't do those. Like, if they would have just cleaned those things up, like, Luka does help considerably on the boards. And I think we're starting to see how much Luka kind of masks for everything. Not to discount I still think this is a really good roster that's good enough to win a title.
Yeah.
But Luka's rebounding was very much missed in this game, especially when you talked about
interesting.
You talk about the gang rebound, like all those rebounds where Lively and Gafford are like getting enveloped by Jokic and trying to take up his, Jokic is taking up so much space. Luka usually grabs those rebounds, right? The ones that
it's so funny because his contested rebound rate is like half of what someone like Jokic's is. He's at like 20%. Which means he gets a lot of uncontested rebounds, but you still need somebody to grab the damn ball.
Right. Yeah, right.
Man.
So that's the offense dying in the fourth, the Dinwiddie ISO stuff was asinine. And
this is my favorite one though, Josh. Like the Nuggets go up 106-99 with 2:21. They call a timeout. Okay. Timeout. Out of a timeout, the Mavericks don't do anything interesting where Spencer has to take a contested step back 3 with 3 seconds left on the shot clock. Where is the play design that we've seen from these guys? Kid is not bad at out of timeout stuff. And it felt like he seeded the game. I mean, in the post game, Roby in the comments noted that Kid said his only sort of caveat was mentioning that the ball stuck a little bit. Well, I don't think Najee was on the floor during a big part of this. Klay wasn't on the floor. Like, there were some weird lineups things going on right now.
Yeah, and this was Klay's best game in like a week or so. It felt like
it's a great game.
Great game. It felt like he made all his shots toward the end of the third, and then didn't hear peep from him from that point on. I know he didn't shoot. He shot well from 3, didn't shoot well from 2, which is just kind of what he's been doing. But they did feel like they didn't run anything for him in the fourth quarter. I mean, it was literally just Dinwiddie dribbling and 4 guys watching, which is just like. Don't do that even when Luka and Kyrie are on. Don't even do that when Luka has the ball. We don't like that either. Like, why are you doing it with
the Spencer grift was up, and the refs were not interested in giving him the foul calls he had been getting. He shot 10 free throws in this game, and you're looking at it, and you're probably being like, Kirk, why are you so mad at Dinwiddie? I am more mad at the process that allows Spencer to play so well. Yes, he had 10 assists, but I would also wager that Spencer had at least 4 of those assists during the Mavericks blitz in the first quarter where Klay is just hitting stuff. That's not to say, he shouldn't be awarded for these sort of things, but the ball stuck with him way too much There's just too much going on. Like as we had mentioned before, there was some interesting lively process. There was some interesting Najee things going on. PJ needed a chance to get going. He had like PJ having
shots.
9 shot attempts in 37 minutes. I mean, it's like the shot distribution was pretty even, with Clay getting the most, and Clay was also on fire. But it's also, I would argue that that PJ's essentially the Mavericks' most important player offensively with these guys out, because when they've gone to him, he really succeeded.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a matchup thing, because Denver is pretty big on the perimeter, and what they like to do with PJ a lot is get him on smaller players for post ups and floaters in the paint.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he took
Denver just doesn't give you
the fourth quarter. Yeah,
he took a what?
He took a fadeaway to start the fourth quarter, where Mark Followell specifically highlighted how they went to him, how they sometimes go to him, and he's pretty good at establishing low, like, well, let's just call it 10 feet and in, posting up. And I think Westbrook, or it was either Westbrook or Gordon, and Gordon is huge, had bodied him out to like the 17, 18 foot range.
Yeah, like when Denver's playing Jokic, Gordon, Michael Porter, that's a lot of big dudes. They're not, you want to try to maybe get Murray switched onto him and then go after Murray.
Mm-hmm.
They did that a lot early. They kind of went away from that in the second half. But Denver's a big team. Like Peyton Watson's a big dude. Like there's not as many opportunities to kind of get those not cheap, but like you punish them for playing a smaller lineup with PJ. And there just wasn't a lot of small, it was basically just Murray, maybe Christian Brown a little bit, but they couldn't get Murray. They couldn't go after Murray enough late, which again just goes back to that stagnation with Spencer. They needed to involve him more defensively.
Yeah. Well, I know some people were probably expecting me to get like super duper heated over this game, but it's a pure disappointment thing. They've got to win some of these games. They just have to.
Yeah, they played They play Denver. They're playing Denver again.
They played Denver on Tuesday, and now they're going to, like, the likelihood of them getting a shooting variance game. They ended up 12 of 34, but they
started 10 of 14.
They started 10 of 14. So do the math there for me. My brain is.
Well, they only made 2. What is
so that's 2 of their next 20.
Yeah.
Woo!
Not good.
Not good, man.
But
Well, the last thing is the team defensive stuff. They cannot afford to be the sieves that they were. So if we're giving Spencer, and I think this is team and Spencer, if I want to give Spencer a little bit of the benefit of the doubt with the offensive fuckery, okay? Because it's at a certain point, it's like, who's kid going to go to? He's the only one who can dribble. They do these 18-second possessions where he dribbles. That's the stuff that we're finding stupid. It's not that Spencer shouldn't dribble. It's that he shouldn't be the only person who has the ball the whole thing. Where they cannot, like, there's certain things where you just got to seed and say, all right, this is what's going to happen in a clutch time situation, because they don't have confidence in some of the other guys. I was losing my mind at the ball, like the miscommunication that were happening on some of the, like, there was a Russell Westbrook wide open layup in the last 20 seconds.
Which one? Like he had
yes,
in the final 5 minutes.
Well, they didn't bother to stop him in transition the whole game. We already talked about that, I'm pretty sure. But it's the cuts at the basket where where you see someone, and it's usually a wing, like a corner defender, just getting beat backdoor, is gross. I don't like it, because then you see, it's like, mistakes happen. Okay. We've all played basketball. And if you haven't, I don't understand liking the sport if you haven't played basketball, whatever. Mistakes happen on defense. It's a complicated process, but it's like getting beat backdoor is like one of those elementary things that you're taught to like work on and taught to break down. And like the Mavericks they weren't prepared for it, or their guys in the corners, Jokic knew to pick on them. And I can't handle that. I lose my mind at that.
Yeah, Denver had 68 points in the paint.
68. Ooh.
Yeah, when the Mavericks, that's their defense. Their defense is totally built around limiting points in the paint. So, Luka's size, you're missing that too, but you would think that you can get by without Luka and Kyrie defensively. So yeah, that's what we got to look at. Like when we look at these games, you kind of hit the nail on the head. What is it that the Mavericks can still control without Luka and Kyrie? Like, we know the offense. You can bitch and moan all you want.
I mean,
it's going to look ugly. It's going to look ugly.
12 points in a quarter is unacceptable. Like, draw something up, kid.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad for sure. But for me, it's like the rebounding. You still got your centers. It needs to be better. Your defensive disposition, points in the paint, that stuff you should still be able to get by, and maybe you just win some ugly games. But that was nowhere to be found.
You got to. Like, this doesn't, and the hope cannot be, well, Luka's going to come back and save us. Like, it can't. Like, this would have been such a big win to build off of, because somebody said in my playback saying, hey, if the Mavericks make the finals, this is going to be a segment that we look back on, and it's like, oh, hey, look at this. Over the next several games, like, they play New Orleans, who's a giant struggle bus. They go Denver, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, Charlotte, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Boston, Washington, New Orleans. Like, they have to win against New Orleans. I would argue they have to win against Minnesota, but that's going to be a dicey game because you never know what you're going to get from Ant. And then they have to win Washington and New Orleans. Those other games, I don't see how they beat the Thunder in the iteration that the Thunder are playing right now. I just don't see how it happens. That's not to say it can't happen. Basketball's a goofy sport. Charlotte's maybe a little bit of a toss-up, but Mavericks never play Charlotte well, which, Josh Green revenge game. There's just elements of this where it's like, as we struggle to get to All-Star break, which is February 13th, so essentially a month from now, it's a lot of games. They just have to find a way to be above 500. And every time they lose one of these, I just sitting there and I'm like thinking, man, Luka's going to come back and it's going to be like February 8th or something like that. And the Mavericks are going to be 2 games under 500. And then everyone's going to expect him to have to lift this team out. And that's not fair. Like, you've mentioned this, the team is too talented to, and this is a game where, yeah, they weren't favored, but they had a chance. And it's the 4th time in 9 games that they've had double-digit leads and lost. That's bad.
Yeah, they weren't favored, but they also had a 19-point lead with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. So,
yeah. Well, I didn't even take a break on this. That's how pissed I was. I think what I'm going to do is on Tuesday night, I'm going to try to get back to having the second post-game show. So we'll have some fans up and talk about that, talk a little Mavs group therapy or Mavs party. I know I've not done one in several weeks. Just very difficult with the holidays with the kids home and work and all that. I just didn't have the juice. But we're getting there. You got anything before we go?
No. Let's just go get to our let's get to our evenings, right?
That's right. Dinner time. I gotta feed my kids and hang out. Everybody be good. Thanks so much and go Mavs.